The headmistress's words cut through the air like ice. Perhaps you should consider if Westfield Academy is truly the right fit for your daughter. Standing in that mahogany-paneled office, clutching her daughter's hand, she felt the world crumble beneath her feet. What they didn't know was that her husband had quietly funded the very scholarship program they were about to deny her child. 3 months earlier, Sarah Martinez had thought she was living her dream. After years of saving every penny from her job as a dental hygienist, she had finally enrolled her 8-year-old daughter Emma at Westfield Academy, the most prestigious private school in their city. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The tuition was a stretch, even with the partial scholarship Emma had received, but Sarah believed her bright, curious daughter deserved the best education possible. Sarah had grown up in a modest household where her parents worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. Her father was a maintenance worker at a local factory, and her mother cleaned offices at night after spending her days caring for elderly residents at a nursing home. They had instilled in Sarah the value of hard work and the importance of education as a pathway to a better life. When Sarah became pregnant at 22 with Emma, she was determined to give her daughter every opportunity she herself never had. Emma's father, Marcus, had been supportive initially, but their relationship had crumbled under the pressure of young parenthood and financial stress. He moved across the state for a new job when Emma was 3, and while he sent child support regularly, his visits became increasingly infrequent. Sarah found herself navigating single motherhood while completing her dental hygienist certification program, often studying late into the night after Emma had gone to bed. The years that followed were a careful balance of work, parenting, and sacrifice. Sarah took on extra shifts whenever possible, sometimes working at 2 different dental practices to maximize her income. She drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic that she maintained herself, watching YouTube videos to learn basic car repairs. Her wardrobe consisted mainly of scrubs for work and a few carefully chosen pieces for parent meetings and school events. Every dollar was accounted for, every expense weighed against Emma's needs. When Emma started showing exceptional academic ability in kindergarten, Sarah began researching the best schools in the area. Westfield Academy consistently ranked at the top, known for its rigorous curriculum, small class sizes, and impressive college acceptance rates. The annual tuition was more than Sarah made in 6 months, but she learned about their scholarship program for academically gifted students from diverse backgrounds. The application process was extensive. Emma had to take entrance exams, participate in interviews, and submit a portfolio of her work. Sarah spent weeks helping her daughter prepare, practicing math problems and reading comprehension exercises every evening. When the acceptance letter arrived with news of a partial scholarship covering 60% of the tuition, Sarah cried tears of joy. The remaining amount would still strain her budget significantly, but she was determined to make it work. Emma's first few weeks at Westfield seemed promising. She came home excited about her classes, particularly enjoying the advanced reading program and the science lab experiments. Her teacher, Mrs. Henderson, sent positive notes home about Emma's participation and enthusiasm. Sarah felt vindicated in her decision to stretch financially for this opportunity. However, the social dynamics proved more challenging than Sarah had anticipated. Many of Emma's classmates came from wealthy families who lived in the affluent neighborhoods surrounding the school. They talked casually about ski trips to Aspen, summers in the Hamptons, and boarding schools they were considering for high school. Emma began asking why they didn't take family vacations or why she couldn't have designer backpacks like her classmates. Sarah tried to explain that different families had different circumstances, emphasizing that what mattered was being kind, working hard, and being grateful for what they had. She encouraged Emma to focus on her studies and making genuine friendships rather than comparing material possessions. For a while, this seemed to work, and Emma appeared to be adjusting well. The first real sign of trouble came during the school's annual fundraising gala. Sarah had purchased a modestly priced ticket, hoping to show her support for the school community and meet other parents. She had bought a simple black dress from a department store and borrowed jewelry from her sister. The event was held at the city's most exclusive country club, with elaborate floral arrangements and a multi-course dinner prepared by renowned local chefs. Sarah felt out of place immediately upon arrival. The other mothers wore designer gowns and discussed recent trips to Europe or renovations to their vacation homes. She found herself nodding politely during conversations on topics completely foreign to her experience. When the auction began, with items like weekend getaways to luxury resorts and private chef experiences, Sarah realized she couldn't participate meaningfully in the bidding. During dinner, she was seated at a table with other parents from Emma's class. The conversation centered around the upcoming school ski trip, which cost nearly $2,000 per student. Several mothers were discussing whether to book additional private lessons for their children or upgrade their accommodations to the resort's premium suites. "Is Emma excited about the ski trip?" asked Victoria Caldwell, a perfectly coiffed woman whose husband owns several successful restaurants in the city. The kids had been talking of nothing else. Sarah felt her stomach drop. She hadn't heard about any ski trip, and even if she had, the cost would have been impossible to manage. "I think there might be some information I missed. Could you tell me more about it?" Victoria's expression shifted slightly, a look of surprise crossing her features. "Oh, it's been discussed in several parent emails and at the last PTA meeting. I thought all the families were aware. It's considered one of the school's signature experiences for the third grade." The other women at the table exchanged glances that Sarah couldn't quite interpret.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. She excused herself and spent the remainder of the evening feeling increasingly isolated and anxious. When she arrived home, she searched through her emails but found no mention of the ski trip. The next morning, she called the school's main office to inquire. The secretary seemed confused by her question initially, then explained that information about the ski trip had been distributed through the parent portal on the school's website. Sarah had been given login credentials at the beginning of the year, but had primarily relied on the weekly newsletter and direct teacher communications for information. When she accessed the portal, she found dozens of announcements she had missed, including details about various extracurricular activities, social events, and the expensive ski trip. The cost breakdown was overwhelming. Beyond the base price of the trip, there were additional fees for equipment rental, insurance, and optional activities. The total exceeded what Sarah spent on groceries for 3 months. She realized that many of the school's signature experiences came with similar price tags, effectively creating a two-tiered system where scholarship students like Emma would be excluded from significant portions of the school's social and cultural programming. That evening, Sarah sat Emma down for a difficult conversation. She explained that they wouldn't be able to participate in the ski trip due to the cost, emphasizing that there would be other opportunities for adventures and that missing one trip didn't diminish Emma's worth or belonging at the school. Emma's reaction was more mature than Sarah had expected, but she could see the disappointment in her daughter's eyes. "Will I be the only one not going?" Emma asked quietly. Sarah didn't know how to answer honestly without making her daughter feel worse. She promised to speak with the teacher about what Emma would do during the week when most of her classmates would be away. The conversation with Mrs. Henderson was uncomfortable. The teacher was sympathetic but explained that this situation arose frequently with scholarship students. She suggested that Emma could spend the week in the library working on independent projects or possibly joining a younger grade for some activities. While Mrs. Henderson was kind and well-intentioned, the solution highlighted Emma's status as an outsider rather than helping her integrate. Word of Emma's inability to participate in the ski trip seemed to spread among the other children. Sarah began noticing changes in how Emma talked about her school days. She mentioned fewer interactions with classmates and seemed more withdrawn during homework time. When Sarah asked directly if everything was okay, Emma would nod and change the subject, but her enthusiasm for school had noticeably diminished. The situation escalated during the school's fall festival, a supposedly inclusive community event. Sarah had volunteered to help with the book fair, hoping to demonstrate her commitment to the school community despite their financial limitations. She arrived early to help set up, wearing her nicest casual outfit and bringing homemade cookies to contribute to the volunteer refreshment table. The event coordinators were Victoria Caldwell and another mother named Jennifer Walsh, whose husband was a prominent surgeon. They were discussing plans for the upcoming winter formal, another expensive event that would require formal attire, professional photos, and various additional costs. "We should really emphasize to families that this is a formal affair," Victoria was saying as Sarah arranged books on display tables nearby. "Last year, some people seemed unclear about the dress code expectations." Jennifer nodded in agreement, "And the professional photographer we've hired is quite exclusive. Parents should understand that this isn't a casual snapshot situation. The quality of the photos reflects on the school's reputation." Sarah continued working quietly, but she could feel the weight of their words. She knew they were indirectly referencing families like hers, who might not understand the unspoken social codes of their affluent community. As the festival progressed, Sarah watched Emma interact with her classmates. Her daughter tried to join conversations in games, but she seemed to be on the periphery of most activities. During the costume contest, Emma wore a homemade fairy costume that Sarah had spent hours creating, complete with hand-sewn wings and carefully applied glitter. It was creative and beautiful, but it looked distinctly different from the elaborate store-bought costumes worn by many other children. When the prizes were announced, Emma didn't win in any category. As they walked home, she asked why her costume hadn't been chosen. Sarah explained that contests were subjective and that winning wasn't the most important thing, but she could see that Emma was beginning to internalize a sense of not measuring up to her peers. The breaking point came 3 weeks later during a parent-teacher conference. Sarah had requested the meeting to discuss Emma's social adjustment and academic progress. Mrs. Henderson was encouraging about Emma's scholastic performance, but expressed concerns about her social integration. "Emma is incredibly bright and motivated," the teacher explained, "but I've noticed she seems to feel left out of many peer activities. The ski trip situation was difficult for her, and there are other upcoming events that create similar challenges." Sarah appreciated the teacher's honesty, but felt frustrated by the implicit message that Emma's scholarship status was creating ongoing problems. She asked what resources the school had to help scholarship students feel more included. Mrs. Henderson's response was well-intentioned, but ultimately unhelpful. She mentioned that the school counselor could work with Emma on building confidence and that there were sometimes leftover spots for events if other families canceled their participation, but there was no systematic approach to addressing the economic disparities that created these social divisions. As Sarah left the conference, she felt a growing sense of dread about their decision to enroll Emma at Westfield. The academic opportunities were excellent, but the social environment was proving more challenging than she had anticipated. She began questioning whether she was setting her daughter up for years of feeling like an outsider. The situation reached a crisis point the following month when Emma came home in tears after school. Between sobs, she explained that several classmates had been talking about their Christmas vacation plans during lunch. When Emma mentioned that they would be staying home and maybe visiting her grandmother, one of the children had loudly announced that Emma's family was too poor to go anywhere fun. "Sophia said that scholarship kids don't belong here because they can't do anything the rest of us do," Emma cried. "She said her mom told her that some families just pretend to fit in, but everyone knows they don't have enough money." Sarah felt her heart break as she held her sobbing daughter. The innocence with which children repeated their parents' prejudices made the situation even more painful. She realized that the adult conversations and attitudes Emma was exposed to at school were shaping how the children viewed and treated their scholarship classmates. That evening, Sarah made the difficult decision to call the school's administration. She requested a meeting with the headmistress, Dr. Patricia Brennan, to discuss the social challenges Emma was facing and to inquire about what support systems existed for scholarship students. Dr. Brennan's office was an intimidating space filled with antique furniture, oil paintings of the school's founders, and leather-bound books. The headmistress herself was an elegant woman in her 60s who had been leading Westfield Academy for over 15 years. She had a reputation for maintaining the school's academic excellence and preserving its traditions. Sarah carefully explained the incidents Emma had experienced and the growing sense of social isolation her daughter felt.
She emphasized her appreciation for the academic opportunities Westfield provided, but expressed concern about the cultural environment that seemed to exclude scholarship families from meaningful participation. Dr. Brennan listened politely, but her response was disappointing. She acknowledged that economic diversity could create challenges, but suggested that these were natural social dynamics that the school couldn't realistically address. She mentioned that scholarship families should understand that they were joining a community with established traditions and expectations. "Mrs. Martinez," Dr. Brennan said in a tone that seemed sympathetic but felt condescending, "we're proud of our scholarship program and the opportunities it provides to deserving students. However, parents must understand that receiving financial aid doesn't guarantee full participation in all aspects of school life. There are economic realities that families need to navigate." The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, but Sarah left feeling that her concerns had been dismissed rather than addressed. Dr. Brennan had essentially confirmed that Emma would continue to be treated as a second-class member of the school community, welcome to attend classes, but not truly belonging to the social fabric of Westfield Academy. The final blow came 2 weeks later, when Sarah received a call requesting another meeting with Dr. Brennan. This time, the headmistress was accompanied by the school's director of admissions, Mr. Robert Chen. The atmosphere in the room felt formal and unwelcoming from the moment Sarah entered. Dr. Brennan began by expressing appreciation for Emma's academic performance, but then shifted to discussing concerns about fit within the school community. She mentioned that Emma seemed to be struggling with social adjustment, and that several parents had expressed worries about the impact on their children's experience. "We want what's best for Emma," Dr. Brennan continued, "and we're beginning to question whether Westfield Academy is truly the right environment for her continued growth and happiness." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face as she realized where this conversation was heading. They were essentially telling her that Emma didn't belong at their school, not because of her academic ability or behavior, but because her family's economic status created social complications they preferred not to address. Mr. Chen joined the conversation, suggesting that there were other excellent schools in the area that might be better suited to Emma's family circumstances. He mentioned public schools with strong programs and smaller private schools with more diverse socioeconomic populations. The irony was devastating. Emma was being pushed out of a school that claimed to value diversity and opportunity, but only if that diversity didn't challenge the comfort and assumptions of their paying families. Sarah realized that the scholarship program was more about the school's image and tax benefits than any genuine commitment to inclusion. As the meeting concluded with Dr. Brennan's suggestion that Sarah consider if Westfield Academy is truly the right fit for your daughter, Sarah felt a crushing sense of failure. She had worked so hard to give Emma this opportunity, sacrificing financially and personally, only to discover that their belonging was conditional and ultimately unwelcome. Walking to her car after that meeting, clutching Emma's hand as her daughter asked why they had to visit the headmistress again, Sarah felt the weight of disappointment and humiliation settle over her like a heavy blanket. She had believed in the promise of merit and hard work, but she was learning that some doors remained closed regardless of effort or qualification. That night, as Emma slept peacefully, unaware of the full implications of their situation, Sarah sat at her kitchen table staring at college brochures and scholarship applications she had been saving for her daughter's future. The dream of providing Emma with the best possible education seemed to be crumbling, and she didn't know how to rebuild hope from the rubble of this experience. That weekend, Sarah decided she needed perspective and called her college roommate, Jessica, who lived 2 hours away in the state capital. Jessica had always been Sarah's voice of reason during difficult times, and she invited Sarah and Emma to spend the weekend at her house to decompress and think through their options. Jessica worked as a financial advisor and had married Thomas Hartwell, a quiet man who worked in nonprofit administration. Sarah had met Thomas only a few times over the years, but she remembered him as thoughtful and kind, someone who listened more than he spoke. Their home was comfortable, but not ostentatious, filled with books and artwork that suggested intellectual curiosity rather than material wealth. Over dinner Friday night, Sarah found herself telling Jessica and Thomas about the entire Westfield Academy experience. Emma played with Jessica's two young sons in the next room, her laughter carrying into the dining room and reminding Sarah of how carefree her daughter could be when not navigating the complex social dynamics of her prestigious school. Thomas listened intently to Sarah's story, asking thoughtful questions about the school's policies and the specific incidents Emma had experienced.
His background in nonprofit work had given him insight into educational equity issues, and he seemed genuinely troubled by what Sarah described. "It sounds like the school has created a system that benefits from diversity for marketing purposes, but hasn't actually committed to inclusion," Thomas observed. "That's unfortunately common in institutions that want to appear progressive without making substantive changes." Jessica was more direct in her assessment. "Sarah, you're not failing Emma by questioning this decision. Sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is recognize when an environment isn't healthy for their child, regardless of its reputation." That evening, after Emma had gone to sleep, Sarah found herself on the back porch with Thomas while Jessica cleaned up from dinner. The conversation turned to his work with educational nonprofits, and he mentioned several organizations he had worked with that focused on making quality education accessible to students from all backgrounds. "There's something I want to tell you about Westfield Academy," Thomas said carefully. "I've been involved with their scholarship program for several years through my nonprofit work. What you're describing doesn't align with the stated mission of the program or the intentions of its major donors." Sarah felt a flicker of interest. "What do you mean?" Thomas hesitated, then continued. "The scholarship program was established with a significant endowment from an anonymous donor who specifically wanted to support academically gifted students from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds. The donor's intent was full integration, not just academic access. They expected scholarship students to be welcomed as complete members of the school community." "But that's not what's happening," Sarah said. "Emma and families like ours are treated as charity cases who should be grateful for access but shouldn't expect true belonging." "Exactly," Thomas replied. "And that's a fundamental betrayal of the donor's vision and the legal obligations that come with the endowment. The school is supposed to provide comprehensive support to ensure scholarship students can participate fully in school life." This conversation planted a seed of possibility that Sarah hadn't considered. Maybe the problem wasn't that Emma didn't belong at Westfield Academy, but that the school wasn't fulfilling its obligations to scholarship families. Over the weekend, Thomas offered to make some inquiries through his professional networks about the scholarship program's requirements and oversight mechanisms. He explained that major educational endowments typically came with specific stipulations about how funds should be used and what outcomes donors expected to see. Monday morning, Sarah returned home with a different perspective on their situation. Instead of feeling defeated, she felt curious about what she might discover if she dug deeper into the school's obligations to scholarship families. She started by researching Westfield Academy's public filings and promotional materials about their scholarship program. The language consistently emphasized their commitment to diversity, inclusion, and providing opportunities for students to thrive in all aspects of school life, regardless of economic background. Sarah also began connecting with other scholarship families at the school. She had previously felt too embarrassed about their financial situation to seek out these relationships, but now she approached them with purpose. Through careful conversations at pickup and school events, she discovered that Emma's experience was far from unique. Maria Santos, whose son Diego was in the grade above Emma, had similar stories about social exclusion and expensive school events that effectively segregated scholarship students. James Thompson, a single father whose daughter Ashley was in Emma's class, had actually withdrawn her from the previous school trip after she came home in tears about comments from other children. Together, these families began documenting the pattern of exclusion they had experienced. Sarah created a simple spreadsheet tracking school events, their costs, and which families were unable to participate. The data revealed a stark reality,
that scholarship families were systematically excluded from approximately 60% of the school's extracurricular programming. Meanwhile, Thomas had been making discreet inquiries through his nonprofit connections. 3 weeks after their weekend conversation, he called Sarah with intriguing information. "I've learned some things about the Westfield Scholarship Endowment that I think you'll find interesting," he said. The anonymous donor who established the fund actually specified very detailed requirements for how scholarship students should be supported. The school is supposed to provide additional funding for extracurricular activities, special events, and anything necessary to ensure full participation. Sarah felt her heart race. "Are you saying the school has money specifically designated to help scholarship families with these costs?" "That's exactly what I'm saying, and there's more. The donor also required the school to have a dedicated coordinator to support scholarship families and ensure their integration into the school community. As far as I can tell, that position doesn't exist." This revelation changed everything. Sarah wasn't asking for charity or special treatment. The school was already receiving funds specifically intended to support families like hers, but they were apparently using those resources for other purposes. Armed with this information, Sarah requested another meeting with Dr. Brennan. This time she came prepared with questions about the scholarship program's funding and support services. She also brought documentation of the pattern of exclusion scholarship families had experienced. Dr. Brennan seemed surprised by Sarah's new approach and uncomfortable with her specific questions about endowment requirements. The headmistress gave vague answers about budget allocations and administrative complexities, clearly not expecting a scholarship parent to have detailed knowledge about the program's funding structure. "Mrs. Martinez, I'm not sure where you're getting this information, but our scholarship program operates according to all legal requirements and board oversight." Sarah maintained her composure but pressed forward. "I'd like to request copies of the scholarship program's annual reports and information about the support services that are supposed to be available to scholarship families." The meeting ended without satisfactory answers, but Sarah could see that her questions had rattled the administration. Dr. Brennan promised to have someone from the business office contact her with appropriate information about the scholarship program. That call never came. Instead, Sarah received a written notice that Emma's scholarship was being reviewed for the following academic year due to concerns about family engagement with school culture and community expectations. This threat only strengthened Sarah's resolve. She realized that the school was trying to silence her questions by threatening Emma's place in the program. With Thomas's guidance, she reached out to an attorney who specialized in educational law and nonprofit compliance. The attorney, Rebecca Chen, reviewed the documentation Sarah had gathered and was immediately interested in the case. After examining Westfield Academy's public filings and the scholarship program's legal requirements, she confirmed that the school appeared to be in violation of multiple aspects of their endowment obligations. "This is potentially a significant compliance issue," Rebecca explained. "If the school is receiving designated funds for scholarship student support but not providing those services, they could face serious legal and financial consequences." Rebecca offered to represent Sarah and the other scholarship families on a contingency basis, meaning they wouldn't pay legal fees unless they achieved a successful outcome. She also suggested that their first step should be a formal complaint to the state's Attorney General office, which oversaw nonprofit compliance. The investigation that followed revealed the full extent of Westfield Academy's mismanagement of the scholarship endowment. The school had been receiving annual distributions of nearly $200,000 specifically designated for scholarship student support, but these funds had been diverted to general operating expenses and facilities improvements. More importantly, the investigation uncovered the identity of the anonymous donor who had established the endowment. The record showed that the fund had been created by Thomas Hartwell 5 years earlier, following his grandmother's death and a substantial inheritance she had left him. When Sarah learned this information, she was stunned. Thomas had been quietly supporting her family's fight for justice while never revealing his personal connection to their situation. His nonprofit work and commitment to educational equity weren't just professional interests, they were personal missions funded by his own resources. Thomas had established the scholarship program after his own experience of feeling like an outsider during his private school years. His family had been middle class but not wealthy, and he remembered the subtle and overt ways he had been made to feel different from his peers. When he inherited significant money from his grandmother, he had decided to create opportunities for other students while ensuring they would have the support he had lacked. The legal investigation also revealed that Dr. Brennan and several board members had been aware of the endowment requirements but had deliberately chosen to ignore them. Internal emails showed discussions about how scholarship families should be grateful for access and shouldn't expect additional handouts beyond tuition assistance. When confronted with this evidence, Westfield Academy faced a choice between a lengthy legal battle they were likely to lose or negotiating a settlement that would restore the scholarship program to its intended function. The resolution came 6 months after Sarah's initial confrontation with Dr. Brennan. The school agreed to a comprehensive settlement that included immediate implementation of proper scholarship student support services, reimbursement to families who had been unable to participate in school activities due to cost, and significant administrative changes to ensure ongoing compliance. Dr. Brennan announced her early retirement, and the school hired a new headmistress with extensive experience in diversity and inclusion initiatives. A dedicated scholarship coordinator position was created, and clear policies were established to ensure all students could participate fully in school life regardless of their family's financial circumstances. Emma's experience at Westfield Academy transformed dramatically. With proper support, she was able to participate in the ski trip, attend the winter formal, and engage in all the activities that had previously been beyond their reach. More importantly, the cultural shift at the school meant that scholarship students were no longer treated as outsiders grateful for charity, but as valued members of the community. Sarah watched her daughter flourish academically and socially, developing genuine friendships with classmates who now saw her as an equal rather than someone to be pitied or excluded. Emma's confidence grew and her natural leadership abilities began to emerge as she felt secure in her place within the school community. The other scholarship families Sarah had connected with during their struggle also benefited from the changes. Maria Santos' son Diego joined the debate team and won a regional competition. James Thompson's daughter Ashley was elected to the student council and organized a successful fundraiser for local food banks. For Sarah personally, the experience had been transformative in unexpected ways. Fighting for Emma's rights had revealed strengths she didn't know she possessed and connected her with people who would become lifelong friends. Her relationship with Thomas and Jessica deepened as she learned about his quiet generosity and genuine commitment to justice. Thomas never sought recognition for his role in creating the scholarship program or supporting the family's fight for fair treatment. He continued his nonprofit work, but Sarah now understood the personal passion that drove his professional commitments. 2 years later, Emma was thriving at Westfield Academy, consistently earning top grades and serving as a peer mentor for incoming scholarship students. Sarah had been elected to the Parent Advisory Board, where she worked to ensure that the school's commitment to inclusion remained strong and genuine. The experience had taught Sarah that sometimes fighting for what's right requires courage she didn't know she possessed, and Eva learned that her worth wasn't determined by her family's financial circumstances, but by her character, effort, and contributions to her community. Looking back, Sarah realized that the most painful moment of feeling unwelcome at Westfield Academy had led to the most meaningful victory of her life. Not just because Emma could now fully participate in her education, but because their struggle had created systemic change that would benefit other families for years to come. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.